Welcome to the first ever live version of the Strategic Veteran. I'm your host, Adam Peters, and today I'm joined by Brandon Aaron, a former U.S. Navy Petty Officer, third class, and submarine nuclear electrician. Way too smart to be talking to this guy. I am not smart enough to be having a conversation with him, but Brandon's journey has been anything but conventional. After serving for 6 years in the Navy, he faced the challenges of transition firsthand, moving from military service into a civilian workforce that didn't always align with the sense of purpose and drive he'd become accustomed to. Inspired by a need to serve his fellow veterans, Brandon founded Hire One, a veteran-focused recruiting firm that helps military members navigate the often difficult transition into civilian careers. Through Hire One, Brandon has become a critical support for veterans, driven by core values of servant leadership, transparency, and empathy. Today, he's going to share his insights into his path from military to business, his challenges along the way, and his dedication to making a lasting impact on the veteran community. So let's dive in and warmly welcome the true embodiment of a strategic veteran, Mr. Brandon Aaron.
Job well done. Best intro I've ever had, indeed.
Yeah, man. It's just kind of what we do here to give credit to you and those gorgeous locks of yours.
Thank you.
Dude, let's jump right in, man. Everybody starts the same way. So what inspired you to join the Navy? Where did you grow up? Why the Navy? All that good stuff.
Yeah, grew up in Raleigh, North Carolina, capital, right smack dab in the middle. About 2.5 hours to the mountains, 2.5 hours to the beach. Played football in high school, went to college, and after freshman year, got invited not to return back. Took the invitation, said that's fine. Had lots of conversations with my parents at the time about high school versus college versus Peace Corps versus military versus which branch in the military versus which job in the military. And I distinctly remember after flunking out of college, the Venn diagrams in the living room, coming out. And ultimately, I actually knew I wanted to become a Navy Nuke because of the civilian transfer that I could actually use at that point in time of 19-year-old Brandon. I thought I would go work commercial nuclear power. But turns out our opportunities are pretty much limitless once we get out. I think also just being a servant leader is something that's always been a little tied to my in every sense of the word. And then you can't not talk about 9/11 for my generation. I was in 5th grade when 9/11 happened. Didn't even know until my dad picked me up from the YMCA and was like, "Did you hear what happened?" So to comprehend it and to see it, I don't even know how old you are in 5th grade. Mom and dad out there can help me out. But, I had no idea what was going on. But from 5th grade all the way up until, joining the military, I lived in a post 9/11 world. So I was happy to go serve my country and help my country and feel like I did it with 80% eyes wide open, as much as a college dropout, dumbass 19-year-old could do it.
Dude, I'm really So Venn diagrams in the living room. What kind of parents did you have?
Dude, literally, you're talking. So my dad worked in a sales job, right? So they, used more paper, and they had like the big sheets of paper. So seriously, we had like one of those up on an easel in my living room with Navy on one side, probably Peace Corps on the other side. And we're just going to town.
You for real put a lot of thought into this. That's awesome.
Yeah, dude, I did
not.
Even my first time taking the ASVAB, I didn't qualify to be a Navy Nuke. So instead of signing for another job, I actually stopped, put it on hold, got ASVAB study guides, hired a tutor, went and actually tried to get better at the ASVAB, and then retook it and qualified by like that much.
Okay, so this is pointing to a level of self-awareness that a lot of us don't have at that age, right? So I talk to a lot of people who have obviously joined. Everybody joined, but they just kind of, if they don't get the ASVAB score, they just kind of take the next job that kind of comes to them, right? Like that they're qualified for. I qualified for a lot of things too. I think there was only like 1 or 2 things I couldn't do. I still chose infantry. I was hooked on, jumping out of helicopters, whatever, so not an issue for me. But I think back to 17, 18, 19 years old, I wouldn't have had the self-awareness to pump the brakes, right? Like, I want to be a Navy Nuke. I'm going to go get these study guides for the ASVAB. I remember taking that ASVAB. They put me in the coldest room I've ever been in with old school computer, like, you know,
Yeah.
the yellowing cases and all of that. And the
40,
keyboard,
45-pound monitor.
there you go. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the keyboard only had 4 buttons on it: A, B, C, D, or 5 buttons, and enter. That was it. And I was the only one at MEPS in that room taking that ASVAB. So I was like, not a shot that I want to retake this thing. You know what I mean? So where did your self-awareness at that age come from? Were you raised like that? Were your parents kind of, you know, pushing you to really explore who you are and what resonates with you, or what?
Man, that's a great question. And I don't know if I'm going to have a great answer. I think obviously I can't discredit my parents for how I came out, right? But also, I don't think was as first degree self-aware as perception or, you know, backtracking stories might allude to it. I think I've always been a reverse engineer of solutions, right? Like, if I want to get good at football in high school, maybe as a freshman, I should go talk to that senior and sit him down and talk to him. And that, like, reverse engineering outcomes has never really been a problem for me, and something that I enjoy. My brain has always been more mechanical and personal than it has been like creative or literature focused. So I think just having human conversations is something I've always been good at, and, you know, utilizing that to better my advantage in different situations has always been of benefit. So I don't think I'm this unique individual who's traveling a road for the first time. I'm like, I look down and there's guaranteed footsteps. Let's try and sprint or take a shortcut or use digital technology. Even back in 2009 and 10, when I was doing this, to try and find other Navy nukes who have been there, done that, and have those conversations. So, man, I don't know. I think it comes down to more just reverse engineering, trying to have an outcome. I didn't flunk out of college because I was stupid. I literally didn't go to class. Like, it was an application,
Right.
An application issue, not a bandwidth issue. So, I'll think on that. I'll marinate on it. I'll talk to mom and pops next time I have conversations with them and ask them that exact question, because it's a super good one.
Yeah, like I said, man, like that age, you know, I at 17, I joined, you know, wanted out of small town America. I didn't do any research at all. It was just like straight to the infantry, straight to basic training, straight to my first duty station, straight to a deployment. I'm like, okay, this is my life. This is cool. I didn't think about the long-term implications or anything like that. It wasn't until, you know, really last year that I developed all of the self-awareness that I have, and what a journey that was. You know what I mean? So just always curious when I get to talk to somebody who develops that at an earlier age, because it's fascinating to me. I wasn't even tuned into something like that at that age, you know?
Yeah. I appreciate it. I'll keep it up. And I think, you know, increasing people's knowledge and confidence levels and, you know, their ability to have these own internal epiphanies or thoughts, it feels good. So I think to both of us, we enjoy doing that to people.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about what it's like to be a nuclear electrician's mate. What is that job, man? Like, what are you doing? And do you really need to be that smart to do it?
So what it takes to be a nuclear electrician's mate, I want to start first with before you even touch a Navy vessel, right? So before you even touch a Navy vessel to become a Navy nuke, you're scoring in the top 1% of people who take the ASVAB. That's across all 6 branches, right? So that's not you're getting the top 1% score, right? It's you're scoring in like, you're not getting a 99.9, you know, but you're scoring in the top 1% of everyone who takes that exam. Then you go to boot camp, right? So then you have, well, hold on. Sorry. First you take an exam and you qualify. Then you go to MEPS and you get physically qualified, right? So they're checking for scoliosis and flat feet and diabetes and all that stuff. So now
Bend
you're
over and spread.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Cough once, cough twice for you.
Did you have
So,
to duck walk around that room naked?
oh yeah,
too?
absolutely.
Yeah.
100%
Okay.
you duck
Yeah.
walk. Yep.
Didn't know if
You're,
they were still doing that when you joined or not.
I
I
mean, yeah,
always thought that was weird.
you're duck walking naked with, I mean, in a row of people, right? They're
Yeah.
having
Oh yeah. Yeah.
10 of you duck walk at one time.
Yeah.
That's
Welcome to the military.
That's a lot of skin to take in. so then you do those two things. Then you go to boot camp, right? So you get filtered through boot camp. Boot camp obviously has an attrition rate. So you have the exam, you have the medical evaluation, then you have boot camp. Then you start a 2-year schooling journey. Again, before you even touch a boat, you're going to basically 2 years of 40, 50, 60 hour a week training schedules, where you're learning heat transfer, fluid flow, all the basics of nuclear power. And slowly but surely, it just escalates up. And essentially, you're doing, a college level course in the course of, severely expediting it and compressing all that. Another high attrition rate, 3 different opportunities to flunk out. People flunk out in every single opportunity of the Navy Nuclear Training Propulsion Center pipeline. Starts with A school, then goes to power school, then goes to the actual NPTU training unit, which is where you're actually on board decommissioned submarines in Charleston, South Carolina, that have live reactors on board still, and you're actually operating a live reactor plant with a watch around you. It's a irreplicatable vetting system that, I don't know what the attrition rate is, but my rough guess when I was in probably had a 35% attrition rate, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. Yeah. And then from there, you go do minimum of 4 years on a boat, and life on a boat is even astronomically more crazy than the whole training pipeline. So I literally worked 120 hours a week on average for 3 years straight, with my boat on cement blocks and me being 15 minutes away from my house. Me and my team and the engineering department and the shipyard, we literally cut open a nuclear powered submarine, removed the old uranium, put new uranium in, and then buttoned it back up, along with replacing everything else connected to the reactor compartment. So new everything. The boat basically got rebuilt inside a shipyard because Uncle Sam's need them to last a little bit longer. And it's just, it prepares. Nothing in the civilian world can even come remotely close to the amount of stress, the amount of life or death situations we're in, the amount of mission criticalness we're in. It's just unmatched. It's a crazy life that even Navy Nuke to Navy Nuke conversations, we have trouble staying on the rails and actually giving a valid answer of what it is we do.
So all that being said, did you enjoy it?
Yeah, it was what I needed at the time. I would not go back and change it. And I would absolutely never, ever, ever do it again.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about the pivotal moment in your service. Did you have one defining moment that kind of shaped the rest of you and impacted you personally and professionally in your career that you still carry with you today?
Yeah. So I kind of want to talk about 2 moments. One of them has already been alluded to. Just it is, I don't quite have a whiteboard, but I'm going to get my graphic guy to throw up some actual numbers here of what a 120-hour working week actually looks like, because it's people like don't believe me when I say it. So just physically working that hard and that long and that many hours does something to you mentally. But we were with a crew and a division that we loved and that we would do anything for. So it's one of those really weird, no shit brainwash moments of you don't really realize that when it's happening, it's screwed up and that you're being used. And there's obviously a culture of, complaining sometimes, and that happens. But it's just, it's something that has put work-life value and work-life balance at such a high priority for me that I will never go back on work-life balance to accomplish another goal if it means letting go of work-life balance. Like I tell veterans all the time, you got to crystallize your civilian goals, and it's okay if they pivot and they change, but you have to be going towards something. And me, since October 25th of 2017 has been work-life balance, work-life balance, work-life balance.
It's a boundary. You set a boundary and you're not willing to budge on that. And I think that's part of getting out is starting to explore who you are, what resonates with you, what doesn't, and setting those boundaries for yourself and not budging on them.
Yeah. And then the other one, you'll hear dozens of veterans, hundreds, thousands of veterans with this story. But we talk about that work culture I was just in, 120 hours a week with our homes being 15 minutes away, right? This isn't a deployment thousands of miles away. This isn't underneath the water. This is your home being 15 minutes away. You literally go home, sleep, wake up, come to work. Like that's essentially all you do. We had a shipmate who committed suicide while on watch, while on the pier, while there, and I didn't know this person well. The submarine is divided up into the front half and the back half of the boat, just due to our work that we do. Back half is the reactor compartment and all the engineering team, and the front half is radar, sonar, weapons, all that stuff. You really just don't have much natural mingling between the crews, but that doesn't change the bond that you form in an environment like that. And, the whole command, having grief counselors on site, the whole command going to the funeral, seeing the, mom and dad come in and, sit at the front and to go through that, it again, just, dude, puts it into perspective of whatever that individual was going through wasn't worth it for those around him. And the closest I've been able to get to describe suicide is individuals just get to the end of their decision-making capability, and they're like, this is going to be the last decision I ever make. And that's what it is. And I like to think they're at peace with that being their last decision, but it's also impossible for them to see the ripples and the waves. And it just sucks to know someone I probably brushed shoulders with multiple times in the chow line the whole month before was going through what they're going through. So
yeah, it's tough, man, because I watched a guy turn his rifle around on the range at basic training. So I've seen
basic
that
training, Jesus.
in basic training, right? And that's hard for me because I thought basic training was kind of a joke. What I mean? Like, and it's just more proof that the hardest day for someone else may be a joke to you, but everyone's hardest day is their own. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you can't pretend like just because you don't think it's hard, it's not hard for somebody else or whatever. And then you add to that the exposure over all of my deployments to dozens and dozens of battle buddies' funerals, right? Like, maybe not brushed elbows with them on a super personal level, but they were in the company, they're in a different platoon, and you do know who they are, and you've probably had interactions with them, and then the finality of all of that. So that resonates with me, man. On a lighter note, you spent most of your time, it sounds like, in dry dock. Did you ever go underway on a submarine?
Oh, hell yeah. Best time in the Navy.
I want to know what this is like. Like, take us through your first ever underway on a submarine when you get out of the harbor or whatever the hell it is that you guys dock those damn things in, and then it's time to go underwater. That's terrifying to me. Like, I don't know what's under there. You can't see anything under there. You're stuck in a giant bubble, basically. Like, what is this experience like?
Yeah. So the Navy has a program set up for the boats that are extended refit to basically there's a cycle where small amounts of the crew get to leave the refit boat that's non-operational and go to an operational boat to actually get qualified and get learned. So I got to go on a ride along, is what they call it, on the USS Michigan. The USS Michigan is a badass SSBN, so a converted nuclear missile submarine that's been converted into a special operations submarine. So it's the submarine with the two mini submarines on top, where badass Navy people get in from the inside, go out and go do stuff and come back. So I flew to Guam from Seattle. I think I maybe had one or two other people traveling with me because it wasn't the whole crew going. You show up to Guam, and these boats have two full crews to kind of maintain the operational status, because it's pretty hard to ask one crew to stay out for 10 and a half months out of the year. So essentially what they do is they do 2 to 3 month rotations and then come back and high five and switch and keep that operational tempo up. So I got there, I did kind of the crew turnover, got introduced to the engineering department, met my chief, And our whole thing that we got to do was we did a shit ton of practice and training off the coast of Guam for ultimately what was going to be our mission. So it was a lot of 1 to 2 days in and out, back and forth for probably 4 to 6 weeks, if I remember. Right. And then when we actually went on our underway, it was super cool. My first full day underway, I'm pretty sure, was a birthday. I got to rack the brain to figure out which year and which one. Yeah. But I just remember the feeling of closing the hatch and going under and knowing that hatch isn't going to be opened up for a little bit and being perfectly content with it. The amount of trust you have by the time you've gotten to that point in your career and the amount of training you've been through. And I'm still one of the most junior guys there. Like, the whole point of me going is to get qualified dolphins, right? To actually get my warfare pin. Best submarine book ever. I'm reading it now about World War II. This is back when they had diesel subs. But my whole point was to get qualified, right? So you pretty much, you have to rely on personality, because you're pretty much invaluable to them as a body. You're eating their food, you're sleeping in their space, but you're not really giving back yet. So you have to go in humble and know and willing to learn and willing to make mistakes. But it's pretty badass to be on a team that efficient and that tight knit, and then throw in the special SEALs operations and having the whole submarine filled with divers and SEALs. I also was on one of the first boats that had a female officer crew, which was really cool. I had a female EA. So our officer, electrical assistant in charge of EDIV. So it was just a really cool biome where I thrived personally. And it was a lot of fun. But you're basically stand and watch for 8 hours, doing maintenance for 8 hours, and then taking care of your body and your food needs. The other 8 hours is what you're really doing. What actually ends up happening is you stand watch for 8 hours, you do maintenance for 16 hours, and then you get qualified the other 4 hours, and you sleep when and where you can. So I had 1 day a week where I slept. Monday through Saturday was lucky if you get 4 hours down at a time. Sunday was the relaxed day on the boat. We had pizza day and stuff like that. They put movies on in the mess deck. But still, as an unqualified submarine rider, if you got caught sitting in the mess deck watching a movie, it's like, what the hell are you doing? Go qualify on my submarine, you rider.
Right.
So it was still a tough environment, and there was a mission and values there, and we had a purpose. And if you weren't adding to the cause, it was well known that you need to add to the cause quickly. I spent the better part of, I want to say, 4 or 5 months attached to that boat, got qualified, everything I needed to get qualified on, got my submarines pinned on me on the dock of Guam, and beautiful sunny day, and, have friends that I'll still chat with for forever. So that's being on an operational boat was the best 4 or 5 months I had in the Navy. Because I was
thinking that being on an operational boat might be a reprieve from being in dry dock, working 120 hours a week, 15 minutes from home. And it's like, well, no, this is the same op tempo that I was working at home. Now I'm just stuck in a tin can under the sea.
And that's the difference, right? The other thing people really don't give the submarine force enough credit for is the lack of communication, right? There's no satellite phones. There's no emails, right? Mm-hmm. Emails. I mean, there is emails, but it's at operational pace, right? Like, your email is not more important than your mission coming in. The bandwidth of surfacing and transmitting data is ridiculously small, right? So even when we do get emails, I remember I was underway during one of the FIFAs, and it was just like, they take out all unnecessary data. So they take out spaces and periods, and it's just like a one run-on sentence where like 7 news stories will just be packed into one paragraph, and then you're literally passing around that. So, I mean, we are incredibly isolated in the submarine force. And that definitely plays a factor in being more tight with your crew, I guess. I mean, if I could choose to go topside and talk to my fiance on a satellite phone, you goddamn right, I'd be topside talking to my fiance on a satellite phone.
Yeah, for sure. So I imagine you only did 6 years. I imagine that op tempo. I can't say that I worked as hard as you did, but I was deployed every other year for 12 and a half years. So,
Yeah.
I'm familiar with a high op tempo. I'm familiar with a high training schedule. My body's broken because of it. So,
Yeah.
I know what you mean when you say this, but we're talking, you make the decision to get out. So first, what was the decision, for you to get out? I assume it had something to do with working way too damn much.
Yeah. Mine was, I realized early on in my Navy Nuke career that the bureaucracy behind nuclear power, although needed and necessary, did not connect well with my thought processes and way of working. And again, long term, I'm like, dude, I got to do all this shit for decades. Like, again, I'm going to reverse engineer it. Like, my brain is just like, wait a second. Like, why am I just going to do this for a year with not knowing what's coming year 2 or year 3 or year 4? And I quickly realized that commercial nuclear power was not where I wanted to end up. So I knew in basically my 2.5 year of a 6-year contract that was going to be my one and only contract. That did not affect my work effort, did not affect my energy, but it did the view of non-engineering department, senior level Navy personnel on the ship to kind of have a mixed feeling about me. Because the chief of the boat, Petty Officer Aaron, when are you re-enlisting? I'm not, Cobb. Well, what do you mean you're not? You're going to turn down 85 grand? When I got a 7 on my ASVAB and now I'm the chief of a boat. You look at me, you can stay. And it just it just hit on deaf ears. And I wasn't ashamed about getting out of the Navy or even telling people, again, as soon as I got to my boat, that 4 years from now, I knew for a fact I was getting out. It was unique. We have a large reenlistment percentage in the Navy nuclear community because they dangle, anywhere from 70 to 100 grand right in front of your face as a freshly qualified 20-year-old. And they're like, look, you just have to extend 2 more years on your contract. But really, they know, and they have the data that once they get you to that 9 or 11-year point, they got their hooks in you. And that's their only goal. Their only goal with that first reenlistment is to get you to that 9-year point, because they know that's when you're sitting on the teeter-totter. So I just saw through it. I knew I didn't want to do it. And all that being said, my transition was now like, okay, if I'm not going to go into nuclear power, what am I going to do? I got relatively lucky with my network in North Carolina, where I had direct access to come and work at a tech school and kind of help. I was a military liaison at a tech school, so I helped a lot of soldiers out of Fort Bragg, now Fort Freedom, and then Jacksonville, get into Raleigh jobs and Cisco and Microsoft and stuff like that. So my transition was relatively smooth in the sense of having an opportunity, but shit hits the fan once I was boots on ground. Like, just the inefficiencies you have to deal with. Dude, people were the biggest thing, right? Like having a coworker cry in front of you for the first time. Again, I've had coworkers cry in front of me. We were at a funeral. That makes sense. Having a coworker cry in front of you because Sally didn't include her on an email that she was supposed to. It gives me goosebumps, dude. You want to say something that will get you a meeting with HR and you can't. Nothing is mission critical, right? Nothing is efficient. I just read an article today about how in 2024, no one wants to work, right? And it's like, I don't have enough data to really talk on that. But my personal experience is, in the civilian world, when stuff gets even remotely difficult, where my community was trained to discuss, adapt, offer solutions, work within solutions, have bandwidth where they were comfortable making decisions. It's like this one is the exact opposite, and it's go straight to bitch and complain. There's nothing to do. And that was just something that was ridiculously hard for me, to see inefficiencies, to see silos, to have ideas on way to make things better, and to just get completely stifled.
Yeah.
Now, bringing that all back around full circle, hindsight being 2020, I do think I went in way too hot with zero experience in a tech school,
Right.
but my actions were, or my intentions were right. My thought process was right. And I think it was just a matter of trying to get better human communication and better expectations out of it, which is still an issue to civilian to veterans and veterans to civilians. And even veterans to veterans and civilians to civilians. It's tough. The military does a really good job of somehow taking the people element out of it to where it's not a day-to-day concern, and civilian world hasn't really out.
Yeah, it's almost, I think military lifestyle, it's you don't have a choice. It's adapt or
Yeah.
die, or get kicked out, right? Like either you become part of this team and you work well and play well with others because that's what the mission requires, or we're going to get rid of you. We don't have time for this, and it's not like that in the civilian world. They hang on to people way too long for, it's just, I get what you're saying, because I had the same problem, like going in, particularly as an infantry guy. Like the infantry is a completely different world from the rest of the military, and the way you talk to people, the way you handle things, the way you problem solve, and everything's done with a sense of purpose. And when I got to the civilian world, mind you, working retail, I was like, oh, I'm fucked. I'm so fucked, because I didn't do anything to prepare, because I was a career guy whose career was ended too short, right? Which is kind of my next question for you, is like, if you knew you were getting out, what were you doing to prepare? Because a lot of the problems I see with the transition are, like myself, I'll use myself as an example. I was a career guy who was medically retired, right? So 8 years early, my career ended. My plan was to go to 22 years and then, figure it out from there. However, plans change, and then I'm kind of left standing with my dick in my hand, like not knowing what to do. I didn't do any kind of preparation. Did you take steps to prepare because you knew 2.5 years in, basically after you got out of A school and qualified to go work on nukes, that you get to the fleet, like, this isn't for me, I'm not going to do this forever, I should probably prepare for civilian life now?
Yeah. The honest answer is not as much as I should have or could have, strictly because of the operational tempo, right? Like I was working up until my EAOS, right, at a pretty high pace. However, I was in a unique position where I had my position at least secured, right? So I knew where I was moving back to. I knew what company I was going to walk into the door from on November, whatever, 2017, right? So those two things were solved for me. Going back, I did not prepare nearly enough. I did not give myself enough bandwidth to actually explore all the opportunities that were available to me. I undercut my skills and my value to the civilian market, and I did not do enough like data-driven research on what opportunities I would be good in. I kind of just fell into what was the easiest opportunity to me to go in. So that was definitely a mistake. I think for my timeline, it was the correct mistake and everything all worked out. But my advice now to veterans, and I've said it probably 8 times in this podcast, in one way or another, find someone who's traveled the path before you. Use LinkedIn, use code words and tricky phrases that only your people would know, right? Look up pieces of equipment, look up schools. If everyone from your division, a lot of them go to this one community college to finish up their degree, find people there, but find people who have walked your path before you, and get the information from them while you can. The other thing I know for a fact I did is I, 1, misidentified, and 2, undervalued my first degree professional network. Your first degree professional network as a veteran is basically any other veteran who is willing to have an open, honest exchange of information with you without the exchange of money. And there are hundreds of thousands of those veterans out there who, if you're an infantry person who's interested in getting into marketing and not security, go find a Marine veteran who's in marketing and has been crushing it for 12 years and say, hey, I'm a military veteran. I'm very much interested in marketing. I like what you've done. I would love any tips, tricks, or wisdom you have. Here's my phone number. Here's my email. You send out 100 of those messages to the right people, and you're having 5 conversations within the next 2 weeks that are unlocking knowledge and doors that you couldn't even see before. So that's what I recommend now.
Yeah, 100%. This is a prime example of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like both of us interested in business, both of us veterans. I reached out to you, you answered, hey man, we have a conversation. Now we're doing a podcast together,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Zero exchange of money.
Yeah.
Awesome conversation every time we've gotten together.
Yeah.
And just building a genuine relationship that I hope to leverage, and I hope that you leverage in the future.
Yeah. One thing that I will say about our community that I think is truly unique, and no other community will say it because it is kind of negative. There's very little envy in the veteran to veteran community. There's very little. Why is that person doing better than me? Why are they making more money than me? Why are they driving a flashier car than me? Why are they being more successful? I've almost never encountered that in a veteran to veteran peer discussion, whether it's about career, about business, about anything. Our community's lack of envy is something you'll never hear about, but it is a true superpower of honest, transparent communication between veterans.
Oh, and I love that too, because the lack of that envy really pushes us forward to just reach out to those people. Okay, I see this person has a lot of money, they have a fancy car. I want to know how did they get there, right?
Yeah.
And I know, because I have that immediate base of power with them, because I am a veteran, that there's a 99.9% chance they'll tell me how. They'll tell me how to do it,
Yeah.
and that's been my experience since I started building everything. Is I just reach out to people that are doing something that I want to know how to do, and I ask. And it's mind blowing how powerful just asking can be. So I'm glad that you point that out. And knowing that your transition, I feel like part of your transition, part of the hard part of your transition was slowing down.
Yeah.
Just in the amount, like, what was that like, going from 120 hours a week to now you really don't have anybody to hold your hand, hold you accountable, and you become accustomed to that level of work? First of all, like, I assume for you the days, weeks, and months flew by. Like, it sucked at the time when you're
Yeah.
on the boat working, doing the work day to day, but you're waking up one day and it's 3 weeks later and you have no idea what day it is. I'm very familiar with that, particularly in the overseas space, because that's where I
Yeah.
was the busiest. And that was one of the hardest parts when I got out. Was I just come from an Afghanistan deployment. I had gone through the train up for the next whatever they were going to send us to, got hurt again, had a bunch of surgeries, and then I'm out. And now I have to slow down. I'm not accustomed to not having this high op tempo, this rigorous training schedule, this PT schedule, all of this. So was that a big factor in your transition?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there was two stages of it. The first stage was, the complete overcorrect and the freshman civilian 15, right? You go from, holy shit, I'm free. Oh man, I'm not doing anything,
Yeah.
right? And you can do that for a little bit, but most of our brains and stuff aren't wired to do that long term. So enjoy that part of it. I think it's one we've all earned. I think it's one everyone should take advantage of. Use that terminal leave, take 2, 3, 4 weeks off in between your transition if you're able, and with proper planning. A lot of people, it's easier to do than you think.
Yeah.
And it's one of the only opportunities you're going to have to do anything like that ever again, because there's not gaps like that in your civilian employment. And if they are, you're more stressed about them than you should. So this is like a planned transition. So go veg out, do stage 1, right? But then stage 2, try and skip the stage 2 where you have to be proven that it exists, because I guarantee you it exists. So if you can skip stage 2 of getting frustrated at your current employer because it is slower, I would highly recommend that. Like, force your brain to just know, hey, I'm going to work at the pace next to, like, if you're being onboarded in a group of 5 people, just force yourself. Just find one dude and be like, hey, can we do this together? Don't go home and finish 3 weeks worth of work on one night. Because you can. It's like 17 minutes worth of work to be onboarded in a Fortune 500 company, and they take 3 weeks to do it.
Yeah,
all right. It's just
aggravating.
what they do.
It's so aggravating.
Yeah,
Oh, it makes
it
no
is
sense.
what it is. So knowing that you can avoid that second step and set proper expectations of energy needed. And a lot of times your first 30 days with a bigger company, you're going to feel worthless, right? It's going to take you a solid 2 to 3 months to even get incorporated, to give your brain an opportunity to do work. So knowing that, and then second, find other hobbies, man. Find other resources. we've been so value driven and mission driven and critical this and critical that and nation security and all that stuff. We're going straight DoD contracting and getting back into a civilian version of military life. Nothing is ever going to be as mission critical as it was before. So finding other outlets, new hobbies. I really encourage people to spend money on hobbies every single year, right? Like take 1% of your earnings and go take a music class or a carpentry class or a glass blowing class or a meditation class, or buy yourself a cool mountain bike and then hire a coach to go out and show you the basics, right? I personally really enjoy getting better at things. And I had to, my brain still enjoys getting better at things. And when you can't get better at your job through design, you have to find other things to get better at. So just know that you're not going to get it in the first year of your work. Year 2 in your work, you can absolutely throttle up year 2, go buck wild year 2. But the first 6 months is just going to be, in most cases, a lack of just drive and motivation and value and everything. And you got to find other outlets for that.
Dude, that's a really awesome point that you made, is encouraging people to spend money on hobbies and tying that back to the enjoyment and getting better at things. I don't have a lot of hobbies outside of, building the Strategic Veteran and the Stronghold and working the nonprofit, but all of those have become hobbies because there's so many skills I have to learn in order to move those things forward. And that's what keeps me from burning out in those things, is like every day I get to learn something new every single day. And I truly do enjoy that. And so it makes a ton of sense that, you're bringing that back to, your hobby, like particularly when you're going through the grinder, your first 6 to 12 months at a new company where, time seems to slow way down. Like we cannot compute because we're used to working way up here, and now we're stuck like crawling at this pace. So dude, that's awesome. Now let's switch gears into, where does your entrepreneurial spirit come from? I know where it comes from, but for those that are listening, they don't know where it comes from. So let's talk about what eventually led you to starting Hire One, and kind of walk us through that journey to owning your own business and starting your own business.
Did you ever have to sell candy bars in elementary school?
Of course. Okay. Yeah, I played sports from the time I could walk until I graduated high school. So fundraising, of course.
I won that competition all 3 years in middle school, right? Like I have always kind of been.
You're the kid I hated.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Because I was
you were better than me.
I remember it. I remember it so easily. It came with $1 off Subway coupon when you bought a $1 candy bar. So my first question, I didn't talk about candy. I said, "Do you order Subway?" That was my only question I asked to people as a little cute little middle schooler. And if they said yes to ordering Subway, I said, if you buy this candy bar, you can use this $1 off coupon.
That was it.
That was it, dude. So, I've always kind of have a entrepreneurial bone, I think, and getting to experience my first transition out of the military into that for-profit tech school. I kind of had direct access to the C-level suite, to the CEO, the director of operations, the director of sales. And I got to be involved in their meetings. I got to help them with brainstorming. I got to help with ideas. And just getting exposed to that, there was just so much stuff I wanted to do, but didn't have the appropriate knowledge or experience yet, just had the ideas and the drive. Then 2020 came and that business filed bankruptcy, and I found myself on the unemployment line. Literally got bored with unemployment, didn't even exhaust it. That was when Uncle Sam was fronting the bill for unemployment too. And like North Carolina unemployment went up like over 400%, right? Like it went from being hundreds of dollars to thousands of dollars.
So you're doing okay.
I was doing fine. I mean, I think I was making, like, I don't know. I want to say it was like $1,000 a week or something. Like it was ridiculous. And that was the first time I've ever been in an unemployment line. But stopped it early, went and started selling motorcycles at the Harley Davidson of Raleigh, crushed it, did so good. But I was working on a rainy Tuesday morning. I was trying to charge bikes in the showroom and getting yelled at by an HR person for leaving an extension cord on the ground. There was no upward mobility. I was getting paid shit for what I was doing, right? Sell a $30,000 bike, get a $250 check.
That's the commission on a Harley.
It's different at every location, right? Every location is independently owned and they all have their own comp structures. But, my personally wasn't great. And I just went in guns a-blazing. But I quit 2 months in, exactly 2 months in. And earlier on in the year, when the writing was on the wall for the tech school, I had started interviewing and putting my feelers out for other military recruiters, for some of the bigger names in the industry. And essentially, I was willing to go to them, build them an incredible book, do everything I'm doing now with Hire One for, a single percentage point of what I was currently doing. And I wouldn't have say, and I wouldn't have, control of what was happening. So by the end of 2020, I made the decision to start Hire One, and to kind of do what I was planning on doing early 2020 with the bigger military recruiters kind of on my own. And we just turned 4 years old this month. We have more traction than we've ever had. We have an amazing community behind us, and I couldn't be happier for the growth that we're seeing. But, the ability to change things that are wrong is impossible in the military. And I think there's a lot of things wrong in military recruiting today. So that is something that drew me to it, right? The ability to maintain control, to get the right people in, to focus on, it sounds weird, but ethical recruiting is like not normal, right? It's so the bait and switches that happen inside of the military community, hey, come interview for this project manager job, but really we know the whole time we're going to offer you this lower technical job and just hope that you take it. It's a boilerplate sales environment where every single account executive or recruiter has a monthly and quarterly and annual goal. You get to March 27th and you're $20,000 off goal and you have a $22,000 placement at your fingertips who doesn't really fit. But if you get them to accept, you meet your goal. That's kind of the current industry. And I just have a vision of building it a little bit differently and really keeping the transparent, ethical focus on the candidate who never gives us any money ever, and kind of being upfront with that to the clients that we're working with and saying, look, you pay our bills, but we work for them. And it's okay if you don't like that, we're not a good fit. But the early adopters that we have are willing to, pour into their employees and their military veteran employees. And we found some really good matches and are making some great placements. And it's only onward and upward here. Again, I have to work for decades. I don't even play the lottery that often, and I doubt I'll win the 1 or 2 times a year I do when it's at 1.2 billion.
Right.
But yeah,
dude,
so that's kind of just how I came into it.
I love industry disruptors, and it's so funny that I'm doing this with you today. Yesterday, I had Evan Poling on the show, who is disrupting the business broker space. He's created his own website to kind of eliminate brokers from the transaction of buying a business. Think Biz Buy Sell, Empire Flippers, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
he's kind of the exact opposite of them, where he actually monetizes the buyer and not the seller. And I think it's awesome. So let's talk about, how are you disrupting the Navy Nuke? Because you focused specifically on Navy Nukes, correct?
Yep. Yeah, we focus specifically and mainly on the Navy Nuke community. That's not to say if you're a super technically inclined veteran and you see a Hire One job description that you like, reach out to us, right? That one is definitely able to do. Leaving a friend base you have gained as a kid in high school. So as far as, how we're disrupting it, I think first and foremost, being a candidate-focused recruiting firm is something you never see. Go to any recruiting firm's website, and they cater to their clients. And I get why that makes sense. But I've built this whole thing around affecting one avatar, and that's, the Navy Nuke avatar. The other thing that we're really doing is we are providing extreme transparency and clarity on both sides of the equation. We're trying to fully educate the HR departments and the teams receiving these individuals on, look, this person's going to have no direct experience in ABCD, But what they do have, and if your company has a good training program and blah, 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 they have all the skills you need electrically, mechanically, troubleshooting, leadership wise, project management wise, quality assurance, all stuff like that. And
I think that's an important part of what you're doing too, because that's really the big breakdown between corporate America and military coming in and being successful in those, those jobs in corporate America is, they're not going to know A, B, or C, but they do have all of these skills as long as you have a training program to bring them up to speed inside of your organization. Because the Army or Navy, whatever branch you're in, it's its own machine, and you've become familiar with how to operate in that machine, and you're really good at it. And those skills are transferable. You just need the blueprint for how the new machine works and how to plug yourself into that. And I've worked for a lot of bigger companies when I was in the insurance world, and I saw this also. They claim to love veterans, they want veterans because of the skills that we bring, but they don't have good training programs to make us fit within those machines. And obviously that's something that you're capitalizing on, because the way your brain works, you've reverse engineered that to see this is a pain point that we can fix.
Yeah. And I do think the roadmap that we're building for this highly specialized group of Navy veterans 2 to 3 years down the road could absolutely be replicated for other high value military niches. I need to replace me with a high level niche of that industry or that group that actually understands it. Right. So I'm not blind to that fact that what we're doing can positively impact. We just simply don't have the bandwidth right now to maintain the integrity and the level of service that we're doing. So building that out in a community where no one can tell me that I'm not the expert has been empowering, right?
I believe it.
That's what we're doing. We're getting these early adopters on. We're getting, businesses, a lot of them in the technical space, in the data center world, quality assurance, commissioning, anything that requires a wiring diagram or a mechanical schematic is normally a good direction for us to be looking.
So if I'm a Navy Nuke and I come to hire one, walk me through the process. What's going to happen?
Yeah. So first and foremost, believe it or not, you're going to have a one-on-one 30-minute career action plan meeting with yours truly. That won't be forever. I have to delegate eventually. I have to train someone to do these meetings. But we're going to focus on crystallizing everything about your future to include, school districts, work-life balance, veteran opportunities in the area, parks nearby, outdoor recreation, professional sports, concert venues. I focus a lot on stuff outside of the job because that's where you're spending the majority of your time anyway. So
kudos to you for doing that, because all of those things are things I never took into consideration when I was looking to go to a new place or a new job or whatever. It was just like, oh, this sounds fun. Let's go there. And I knew nothing about the area, so kudos to you for doing that.
Yeah. So you talk about one thing that makes us different on the candidate space. We don't have recruiting conversations with our candidates. We have veteran to veteran conversations with our candidates, completely transparent. We're their open book. You tell us everything. We translate what you tell us and then tell you what to tell our clients. Right. So we're the open book aspect. We're the, you truly have to crystallize what you want. I don't want you to be a statistic that leaves your job in the first year or two. Right. I want you to make upward movements only from here on out, not a lateral one because the fit wasn't there. Right. So again, just focusing on the avatar of knowing, hey, this is, a town that's known for country music. Do you like country music? Okay, cool. I think you'll find a lot of live music there. Do you and your wife tend to stay in, travel for vacations, or do you like the city life? It's the things that you're not thinking about, but they're gonna provide so much good work-life balance, positive mental energy, and support during this already, confusing time that, it's completely necessary. And no one else does it. No one else truly cares.
And I like this so much because all of that stuff gets overshadowed by the immediate need to find a job, to make money, to support our families when we get out, right? Like that's the way we're wired coming out of the military. Mission is provide for my family.
Yeah.
How do I do that? And that's what happens to a lot of veterans is they take the first corporate job that comes their way, they get stuck in it, and they're miserable, because they didn't consider all of these things. And I think, again, with you drawing that boundary, like we talked about at the beginning of the show, with work-life balance, that's a hard line in the sand for you, and you're not going to compromise on that, and you're passing that along as part of your service to these Navy Nukes, for now, and then hopefully in the future to really other specialized, MOSs or whatever you guys call them in the Navy.
Also,
So yeah, so I think that like you really have stumbled on something super unique, and that most people aren't considering these things. And I know that if I sat down in that initial meeting, let's just say you're doing this for infantry guys, right, to find careers, I would be taken aback and really appreciate and feel way more confident in my decision to work with your company, because you're asking me those questions and not the typical, recruiter, job placement type questions.
Keep in mind, I have had hundreds of meetings with infantrymen, getting them into tech career fields before Hire One, right? And it is and still meetings I do now, I always ask for feedback at the end. And the most common feedback is like, well, this was like no other conversation with a recruiter I've had. And I'm like, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
And
I'm glad I picked up on it, because, I think it is important. It's definitely, to me, that's like the unique value proposition of Hire One.
Yeah. Yeah. And we just want to try and crystallize, and it's such a funky, weird word that people don't understand. But like right now, ask veterans to close their eyes and see what their future is. And most of them have a fuzzy, not clear picture. So if you can close your eyes and actually see a clear picture, either professionally, personally, hobby-wise, anything that you want, and then again, reverse engineer that. All right, I see myself in the mountains on a 2-stroke on single track. How do I reverse engineer that life? And you do it.
I did the same thing, man. Work backwards. Dude, what are the future plans for Hire One? What are your needs right now? All that good stuff.
Yeah, future plans for Hire One is to continue casting the net as far and wide for opportunities for our technically inclined military veterans. We're obviously going to keep doubling down and focusing on this niche of Navy Nukes, because it's brand building, it's awareness, it's rising tide, kind of keeps all the ships going up. That was a beautiful way to say that.
Pun intended.
So we're definitely going to continue to grow our direct placement services. We're adding, 1 to 2 new companies per month now. I think that number is going to go up to, 2 to 3 to 4 per month starting next year. We're definitely gaining some traction in the data center space, whether it be construction, commissioning, or operation. So if you're a decision maker at a company that hires technically inclined individuals and you want to increase your military veteran presence, I would love a chance to talk with you and educate you on what Navy Nukes can bring to the table. If you're a Navy Nuke looking for opportunities, we do have a jobs page on our website. So that'll be hireone.com/jobs, HIGHR1. We have one big project that we're going to launch next year that we're super excited about, that I'll kind of keep on the hush, but essentially it's just going to increase our presence in the veteran hiring space, more specifically veteran internships, and how that process can look and get better and help with transitioning military veterans. So we're super excited about that. But just follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. We're getting ready to start. Next month, we'll probably have a YouTube channel go live where we'll do some more long form cut. But our when you break it down to a simplest form, is to bridge the knowledge gap that currently exists between technical military veterans and civilian hiring teams. And it requires 2 different train tracks and 2 different forms of communication and 2 different avenues of who we're educating. But we are steadfast on educating both sides of the equation, and we're going to keep doing that slow and steady. We got the first member of the team has been sitting back here. We have other team members remote. I think we're going to have, we're going to grow our actual physical team by probably 2x, maybe a little bit more. So it's just super exciting stuff. We're excited to impact this community and to keep building a brand name. And really, future's limitless. But if you know anywhere where Navy Nukes should be, I would love to hear about it. And then if you are a Navy Nuke looking for a place to go, come have a career action plan meeting for me, and we'll crystallize some things up.
Yeah. And you'll enjoy the conversation, I promise. He's an awesome guy to talk to. It's a lot of always high energy every time I meet with you. Dude, my next question for you is, where can everybody find you? But you already dropped all of that. So
Yeah.
what's the one thing you hope veterans take away from our time here together today, man?
Put a higher value on your veteran network or your current military network if you're still in. Again, have a different reimagine, close your eyes and reimagine your first degree professional network to be any veteran who's willing to give you solid, honest information without the exchange of money. And you literally have millions of people at your fingertips. And now it's down to you to niche down which one of those millions you want to talk to. So niche down into, like I said, use that marketing example again. If you want to get into marketing, go find a veteran who's crushing it in marketing, send them that 4-part message and have conversations and be open. The biggest mistake, the most commonly messed up step to success is the ability to receive help. People can ask for help. People can go looking for help. But when it actually comes to receiving help, especially as a stubborn veteran, we fail at that consistently and often. So be ready to actually receive the help you're asking for, because I guarantee you it's closer than you think, and you just haven't been able to receive it. That would be my advice.
Yeah, and you're not able to receive it because oftentimes you're not going to like what the help looks like. It's going to be rough.
Yeah, don't
so
think
prepare
you know.
yourself.
Yeah, don't think you know
yourself.
everything. Don't go in. If immediately you're rolling your eyes 7 minutes into a conversation with a stranger, then you got to have some self-awareness and go, all right, I just want someone to tell me one specific thing. And if that's the case, just put a different voice on and go talk to yourself in the mirror. If that's all you need, it'll have the same result.
Dude, thank you so much for doing this, for being here today. This was a blast, man, and lots of good information for those of you that are out there listening. Please don't forget to like, rate, review, subscribe, download, share this with everybody you know. Help me accomplish my goal of getting this in front of 1 million veterans before I turn 40 on May 9th, 2025. Lofty goal, but there's 20 million veterans in the United States. So I know this community can help get me there. So
5%.
There you go. 5%. That's all I need, right?
Yeah, it's doable.
And we will see you guys next week with another episode of the Strategic Veteran, launching Wednesdays at 9 a.m. And don't forget about Transition Talks. The Stronghold is live. Lots of cool stuff going on in there. So if you're a veteran struggling with transition, come join my member-driven community. There's no fluff. There's no bullshit. I literally won't build anything in there unless the members tell me they want it or need it. Everything is member-driven. So, and it's the antithesis of the Facebook groups. I promise you, you can come, you can be vulnerable, you can talk about the same things that Brandon and I have talked about today and get actionable, solid advice. You may not like what you hear all of the time, but you will get it. And nobody will rip you to shreds or put you down or make fun of you because you're asking what they consider a dumb question. I'll kick them the fuck out. So until next week, this has been Brandon Aaron and the Strategic Veteran Live. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you next week.